All right, class, today we're going to explore something super important in nature: the flow of energy in a food chain. Every living thing needs energy to survive, and that energy moves from one organism to another through a food chain. First, let's understand how a food chain works. A food chain starts with the sun. The sun provides the energy that plants need to grow. These plants are called producers because they use the sun's energy to make their own food through a process called photosynthesis. Without plants, energy wouldn't enter the food chain in the first place. Next, we have consumers, which are animals that get their energy by eating other organisms. The first consumers in a food chain are herbivores, animals that eat only plants. For example, a rabbit might eat grass to get its energy. The energy from the plant moves into the rabbit. Then, a carnivore like a fox might eat the rabbit. The energy that was in the grass has now moved from the rabbit to the fox. That's how energy flows from one organism to the next in a food chain. Now let's talk about decomposers. Decomposers are organisms like fungi and bacteria that break down dead plants and animals. They return nutrients to the soil, which helps new plants grow. Decomposers are an important part of the food chain because they help recycle matter back into the ecosystem. All of these organisms, producers, consumers, and decomposers, are connected in a system where energy flows from the sun to plants, to animals, and then back into the earth. This flow of energy is a pattern we can see in every ecosystem, from forests to oceans to fields. But what happens if one part of the food chain disappears? Let's think about an example. Imagine a pond where frogs are an important part of the food chain. Frogs might eat insects and birds might eat frogs. If the frogs suddenly disappear from the pond, what do you think would happen? First, the insects that frogs usually eat would increase because there's nothing controlling their population. Next, the birds that eat frogs might struggle to find food. If the frogs are gone, the birds might have to leave or even die off. This change would affect the whole ecosystem. Another example is a field of flowers and bees. Bees help pollinate flowers, which helps plants grow and reproduce. If bees were removed from the field, the plants wouldn't be able to reproduce as easily. Without plants, the animals that rely on them for food might leave the area or starve. The entire food chain would be disrupted. These examples show that every part of the food chain is connected, and removing even one part can affect the whole system. This is why it's important to protect all organisms in an ecosystem, because they each play a role in the flow of energy and the balance of the environment. So here's something to think about. If an important part of a food chain disappears, like frogs from a pond or bees from a field, how do you think that would affect other animals and plants? How do you think we can protect these ecosystems to keep them in balance?